Welcome in TNC Radio.live. We are live on a Wednesday night, May the 3rd, 2023, and this is Keep On Talkin'. Here are your hosts, Tom Kirk and Christine Gray.
Hey, Christine, it's great to be here on a Wednesday night, just like we do in each and every week around the counter of knowledge. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to tonight's show. Little carry on from last week's show. See how things go.
I know we got quite a few people reaching out to me after the show last week who had different things that they wanted to kind of continue the conversation on. I even had a few phone calls today while I was at work. People going, says, you need to talk about this tonight in regards to this. And to kind of remind everybody where we were going last week is we kind of had some breaking news come in that a California legislator, Assembly member Cecilia Aguiar-Curry, who's a Democrat out of Winters, California, basically was saying, hey, if you're going to have a heavy duty vehicle over 10,000 pounds, there needs to be a safety driver in it if you're going to go fully autonomous. And if something goes wrong, the driver can take control, override the system, and handle it from there. And the other thing that kind of jumped out to me in the article is earlier in the year, the Autonomous Vehicle Industry Association was basically giving some testimony at a hearing and implying that the nation's and state's professional and skilled truckers are dangerous, drunk, and texting drivers who pose a deathly risk to the public. And that was basically Assemblyman Aguiar-Curry's take on what that testimony was. So she has introduced this legislation that would basically say, hey, if you're going to have one of these vehicles on the road for testing purposes, transporting goods, transporting passengers, there must be a human safety operator physically in it. And we had quite a bit of a conversation last week. A lot of drivers were giving their thoughts on this and some experiences with some of the equipment that we're talking about. And keep in mind, a lot of that equipment, we're talking about collision mitigation systems, lane departure systems, the anti-rollover jackknife braking systems. Well, that's not full autonomous trucking. It's some of the tools that either directly or variations of it is what they're talking about putting in some of this equipment. So we're going to kind of pick up on that conversation. And one of the topics that got brought up last week, and I want to start off here on it this week, is the concerns, because Tom Kelly raised this with a story out of Phoenix with the Uber driver, or I believe it was Uber, that was doing some testing and ended up hitting and killing a woman who was crossing the street. And there's a whole bunch to that story, but basically that safety driver wasn't paying as much attention as she should. There were some other people in the car. They were doing some other things as well. And the car did not see the woman, hit and killed her. And as of this moment, basically they're only planning on charging the driver. So Lisa Schmidt last week brought this up, and Jess Graham, I know, has some concerns on this. I think everybody who was on the show last week brought up concerns about what are we going to do if I don't think it's a question of if the equipment malfunctions, when, who's going to be the blame for this? So Jess, I want to kick it over to you for a minute because I know you have some thoughts on this.
Oh, absolutely. When I read the article and it was talking about having the safety driver online, that first off told me that that safety driver is who everybody in the powers to be have decided they're going to assign the blame to if something goes wrong, because the insurance company's not going to insure these vehicles without somebody to assign the blames, and the companies are not going to just take liability sitting down. So that's a whole scapegoat right there. So that's a red flag too. In face value, it looks like it's preserving the driver's jobs. It's not you can't take a whole industry and lay off 3 million people and not affect the economy. So that's the quote unquote what they're trying to do with, safeguarding driver jobs, but it really is just to assign blame and liability to an individual instead of the technology or the company.
Agreed.
And I think that's definitely a very valid opinion. And in all honesty, based on the history of the trucking industry, it's a pretty safe opinion to have because, and this is a slightly different area, but okay, you've got a driver where the load. It's a preloaded, pre-sealed trailer and a pallet tips over or something else. And particularly if you're the one delivering it, if you're not the one that picked it up or the one that hauled it in the middle miles, you still a lot of times seem to be the one who gets blamed because a pallet broke or something's damaged because you're the one that's there. And trucking, rightly or wrongly, does have the best example that I can think of is a few years ago. There was an accident where a car had ran a stop sign, and when they were in the assigning the blame portion, because it was at a percentage of fault state or Canadian province, the judge basically gave the truck driver, I don't remember the exact percentage, but let's say 20 to 30% fault. Why? Because the driver was checking his mirrors as legally required. And they basically said, well, if you weren't checking your mirrors, you might have seen the vehicle and been able to stop before it hit you or you hit it, depending on, which side you were on. So this is an industry that definitely does have a track record of blaming the drivers. Bruce, I'm going to go to you here for a second, and then Jerry will come to you. And actually, if you want to participate in today's conversation, we got plenty of room for you at 706-862-8620. What are some of your thoughts or your opinions in regards to, is this, purely for safety reasons, or do you think there is other legitimate reasons for this?
I don't see anything safety about this. So it's not for safety reasons. There's other hidden agendas. They don't want as many drivers. Try to get away from paying the drivers what we're worth, because you're not doing anything. You're just sitting there watching it go down the road. No, I'm sorry. It's not about safety.
Well, I'm going to jump in there real quick for a second. I have and I agree with you. They're going to say we need to pay you less because you're just sitting there. But because in my opinion, you're going to have to pay even a higher level of attention to monitor the situation because you're not the one in control. I think arguably we should be paid more because it is going to take a different, skill set is the right word, but a different level to detail than what drivers are normally, because you're going to have to be trying to outthink the computer. Am I going to have to intervene?
Can I throw a question out here?
Sure, jump in, Christine.
So I have a question. Has anybody interviewed any of the test drivers for these automated trucks to see how they're reacting? In terms of the full automated ones, I'm not sure if I've seen any full interviews with them. I think the only interviews that I have seen so far are with people more like us who have had issues with some of the intermediary steps, such as collision mitigation and things like that. And that's where I think we've seen most of the interviews coming from. Or if there is an interview from a test driver, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Starsky Robotics had a couple of their drivers talking about it, but we're going back a few years. But I believe it was a very curated conversation with selected people. So I don't want to say. I think my opinion is they made sure that the people who are going to give the company line were the ones giving the interviews. To my knowledge, there's been no interview done with anybody who's being very frank with their opinions on it. Right, exactly. So that would be my question. I would like the honest opinion of a driver who's actually driven one of these trucks, and have an honest opinion from a truck driver who's done it.
We're not talking about a steering wheel holder. We're talking about, somebody like Bruce or Jess or somebody, Jerry, somebody who's driven and given an honest opinion about how these trucks have reacted or how they've maintained road, integrity to the driver's response. That's my curiosity. I want to know what the truck is doing. Is it reacting the way that we would react? That's my question.
Yeah, and that's a very good question. I think, and we're going to have to go to a break here in just a moment, but I also think the counter question that's going to be phrased by some people, particularly some of the safety advocates, well, or is the truck behaving or reacting better than the driver would react? Because, a driver would do X when maybe they should do Y. So that is really, I think, there's two sides to that, but I think they're both valid questions. And we need to have some of these very frank conversations, because sometimes the machine, if it's trained right, could it be better in very limited circumstances? Possibly. But could it be, a problematic in others? Very definitely. And actually, I want to talk a little bit briefly about that big accident we had this week with the dust storm, and a potential concern with these automated trucks and why a safety driver might be valid. You can call in at 706-862-8620. We'll be back right after this. Keep your ears on.
60s and on. Traditional country is more than a time period. It's a style and approach to music that we cherish. We have an incredible collection of songs that define country music, and also sprinkle in some Western music, cowboy music, bluegrass, Americana, and country gospel. Our TRUSA president and country Western music icon, Rex Allen Jr., also hosts an hour of music and memories. At TRUSA, we have a heart for the road and the heritage of country music. Wherever you roam, we hope you'll take us with you. Enjoy the ride on Truckers Radio USA. To listen to TRUSA Radio on the TNCRadio.live app, just click on the music button and then TRUSA.
This blog on TNCRadio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. 5 best scenic drives for truck drivers. One of the many benefits of being a truck driver is traveling the beautiful United States. Truck drivers spend their life on the road. Although they may get tired of driving, there's still routes and attractions most look forward to seeing. Whether it be cruising down the coast of California, driving in the Smoky Mountains, or passing through the Arizona desert, truck drivers all have their personal favorites. Here are the 5 most beautiful scenic drives rated by truck drivers. Pacific Coast Highway. The Pacific Coast in California, also called Highway 1, is one of the most iconic scenic drives in the United States. Driving along the Pacific Coast reminds you of a movie or TV show. It's about 650 miles long and runs from Capistrano Beach in Orange County to Leggett in northern Mendocino. San Juan Skyway. San Juan Skyway, a scenic byway in Colorado, is known for its million-dollar views. The byway goes across the San Juan National Forest and has provided truckers with beautiful views of the mountains and landscape. Beartooth Highway. Beartooth Highway in Montana is a 68-mile byway that runs through southwest Montana and northwest Wyoming and goes into Yellowstone National Park. Along this drive, you'll see one of the most diverse ecosystems accessible by vehicle in the United States. Keep in mind that the scenic highway closes in the winter due to adverse winter conditions and typically opens up on Memorial Day weekend. I-64 in West Virginia. West Virginia has some of the most beautiful landscapes on the East Coast. Driving down I-64 in West Virginia feels like you're in a painting. If you have time to stop along your truck route, check out Tamarack, located just off I-64 in Beckley, West Virginia. Tamarack is a unique culture center with art from local artisans and delicious food. If you want the full Appalachian experience, check out Tamarack. Utah's Route 12. Utah's Route 12 is one of the most scenic routes in the United States. It's often called the All-American Road. Also, there are 2 national parks at each end of the road, Bryce Canyon and Capitol Reef, and many other unique scenic views. This info blog was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
It's Truckers Life Radio from TFC Global with your host, Ron Frazier. Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Here we're helping drivers as they travel life's highway. I love that. The spiritual side, drivers face a lot out on the road. Truckers Life Radio digs in on the spiritual and moral questions that drivers face on a daily basis. You don't want to miss it. Every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Welcome back, TNC Radio.live. This is Keep On Talking. Here's Tom Kirk and Christine Gray.
Hey, thank you very much, Tom. And we are back. How are you doing there tonight, Christine? Because we kind of launched into this conversation at the beginning here and didn't really get a chance to catch everybody up on how we're doing. Oh, by the way, if you want to join the conversation tonight, we're talking about some autonomous trucking and a proposed bill in California that would require a safety driver, 706-862-8620. So how are things going with you, Miss Christine? I hope you're feeling better.
We are doing better. We start therapy on Monday. I pushed myself a little too hard, but otherwise, no, I am doing better. And I believe that I did. I don't know. Did you want to go to Bruce and he had something that he wanted to talk about first thing, or did you want to swap over to Jerry?
Well, let's kick it over to Bruce because you were talking a little bit about a 2-lane roads there during the break, Bruce. Let's talk about that. And then I've got a question I want to pose to everybody here, and then we'll go from there. So let's start off with you.
All right. Last night, I was cutting through the backwoods of Missouri. 2-lane back road, dark. Speed limit 65. Okay. You come up on a curve that you really can't see right away. And whoever's driving that truck, he's in an office. He can't anticipate what's going to happen. We all know how the truck is going to react because we're right there at the wheel. Okay? I don't see them being able to do it. And how long is it going to take the safety driver to take control? In a situation like that, I don't think there's enough time to do that.
There's not. Think about your reaction time.
Exactly.
Okay, Christine, exactly. I know you've been a trainer and you've helped develop some safety programs. Off the top of my head, and if I have the number wrong, somebody please jump in. By the time you figure in your reaction time, the time to become aware there's a problem, react to the problem, then all the braking systems and everything else to activate, we're pushing 3 seconds. And
you're actually pushing longer than that. You're closer to 7.
Okay.
You are closer to 7 because by the time you realize what's happening to the counter, the trailer's already in motion. So for me, as a tanker driver, the trailer's already in motion and it's slosh. You got to stop the slosh before it goes. And you're looking at 7 seconds. In a box, I would say, yeah, you're closer to maybe 4, 5.
Well,
but yeah.
And the 3 seconds I'm talking about, let me be very clear. That's just the time till the brakes engage and start the braking process. That's not how long it's taking the truck. So let's just assume they say it's 6 to 8 seconds to stop the truck.
Yeah.
You need at least 3 seconds on top of that. So now we're talking 10 seconds, 12 seconds.
Exactly.
But that's where I'm talking about. If you're looking at 3 seconds being considered just till something starts to happen, being considered a fair average.
Okay, so I'm going to throw another one out for you, and I don't know, I don't personally know if they've addressed this one too, but when, like Bruce was just talking about on rural roads and school buses, there's a good one for you, because red stoplights, not yellow caution lights, but red stoplights, you've got to come to a stop. Are they going to try to go around that, or are they going to actually stop?
And
there's
that's
That's a good question. I also think, though, from what I'm hearing from the autonomous vehicle industry, they're only looking at the interstates right now for what they're talking about. They're basically the middle miles, the longer haul or the boring haul runs. They're not looking at putting these on the secondary or back roads right away. It would be drivers like you, me, Bruce, Jerry, Dutch, Jess, etc., taking them to a centralized-ish location where it's considered safe, and that in some ways maybe defeats some of this. But the one thing I think we have to remember when we're talking autonomous trucks, we're talking multiple stages of development here. And I think one of the problems that we have, and Tom Kelly, please correct me if I'm wrong, there's a lot of misunderstanding on people when we come to autonomous trucks. They think that these full self-driving trucks are basically going to be on the road next year and are basically going to be mistake-free or relatively problem-free. And from what a lot of things I'm seeing and hearing, we're probably years away from something that's fully autonomous or even close to fully autonomous without having a lot of problems. And I don't know if I want to use the word carnage, but a lot of problems in general. Would you say that that's correct, Tom?
Well, it's kind of ironic if you guys think about it for a moment. Can you tell me, other than perhaps the airlines, what industry is more regulated than trucking?
None.
And tell me, please, who's regulating the building of autonomous vehicles?
Government.
The International Association of No One?
No one. No one's watching it. No one. There's no. They barely have an IEEE. How are we going to talk to each other? System. It's barely up. There's nothing on here about how to secure this stuff. There's none of it. And if you don't think it can be hacked, we can hack your truck now. Just wait till we have autonomous trucks out there. It boggles my mind that every single time a driver sneezes, that we feel like we need to get that down in the ELD and send 3 copies back to their dispatcher and make sure that a safety officer takes a look at, did snot come out when he sneezed? And we're sitting here looking at autonomous vehicles, and whoever wants to just put something together and go out there and go for it, just have fun. What are we doing?
I think that's a really good question. I mean, is this one of the issues where they're so excited about the thought of, can we do this? They're maybe not asking, should we, or what are the steps in place if we're going to do this to make sure it's safe and practical? Do you think it's the excitement of the technology's got people so excited about the new frontiers and let's make all these pushes forwards? They're forgetting, it's basically like, okay, the kid can toddle, so we're going to put him in the Boston Marathon next week.
Basically, the industry needs to go nuts on this. And, ATA, OOIDA, all you guys, where are you? You should be pounding every congressman in the country, every state legislator, everybody, and say, until we have this stuff regulated, do not put this crap on the road.
Well, Tom, I think you remember about 2 years ago in Joplin, I basically asked that question to the FMCSA rep. And I think I played the answer for you. Talk about the best non-answer answer. Well, they're working on a development, but that's a different department. But I'm sure before these get on the roads, we'll have an answer or something to that effect. And I think 2 years later, I think that's still the answer in my personal opinion. Next time I get a chance to talk to an FMCSA rep, I'll have to ask them and see if it's maybe changed a little bit. But they didn't even seem to have a timeline for the introduction of a security plan, much like the FAA has for airplanes. So, that's a good question. And I think that also brings up another point I want to get to here real quick. I'll introduce it and we'll talk more about it after the next break. We just had a real bad accident with multiple fatalities. because of a dust storm in Illinois this spring. And this technology, I don't think it would have helped. The biggest concern that I have is, okay, the truck identifies a dust storm. And as a lot of drivers know, if you go out west, you're basically trained. If there's a dust storm, pull over onto the shoulder, turn your lights off, turn your trucks off, wait it off, or your car off, as the case may be. So you don't get the filters jammed and people don't drive into the lights. Well, whether it's a dust storm or anything else, if these trucks have an emergency, who's going to put out the safety triangles? They're talking about some really interesting lighting systems to get around the federal DOT requirement, FMCSA requirement of putting out safety triangles at certain intervals. Is that going to be effective? Are we going to use the roads as a test bed for that? I think those are some questions that need to be answered before we get on there. And the other question is, having driven vehicles to have collision mitigation systems, if they malfunction, where's the override? How do you override them? Can you? And those are some of the questions we're going to be asking after the break. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages. Keep those ears on.
I'm Ron Samuels. We put it in reverse gear so you can enjoy the history of popular music and hear the soundtrack of life Wednesdays at 8 Eastern and 7 Central, right after the train station on tncradio.live.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. Many years ago, there was a psychologist, Dr. Gordon Allport, who introduced a concept called functional autonomy. What does that mean? Well, interestingly, it means that we start a behavior for some reason or another, and then that behavior takes on a life of its own and has no connection whatsoever to the original reason or reasons we started it. Let me give you an example. A girl starts smoking cigarettes at age 13 because she wants to seem grown up or cool or connected with her friends or whatever reasons. She's still smoking at 47, and it has nothing to do with the original reasons she started. Now she's smoking because, for one, she's addicted to the nicotine. Maybe another reason is she's tried before to quit and she gained a bunch of weight. But it has nothing to do with the original reason. Her behavior now has a functional autonomy. It exists on its own, even though it has nothing to do with the original reasons why she started. So what do we do with this information? Well, hopefully, we understand why we're doing what we're doing now, and then look for ways to change that behavior. So in the case of this woman, we understand that there's an addiction to the nicotine, so that needs to be addressed. And we understand that there's a concern about gaining weight, so we have to address that. In other words, the original reasons, we don't need to look at them because the behavior is now connected to the current motivations to continue smoking.
Hi, I'm Shelley Johnson with TNCRadio.live. You know me for the Truckers Network radio show and Women Road Warriors that I co-host with Kathy Tuccaro. We know that life as a driver is not easy. Do you believe in the power of prayer? Whether you're moving down the highway or taking a break, you can take a moment right now to tell God about your hopes, concerns, and gratitude. Do you want someone to pray with? No problem. Just call the TFC Global 24-hour prayer line. It's 866-515-9406. That's 866-515-9406. Or if you're using the TNCRadio.live app, just press the prayer line button to be connected to a prayer warrior who will confidentially pray with you and for you. Thank you, and God bless.
Welcome back in TNCRadio.live. This is Keep On Talking. Here's Christine Gray.
Thank you, Tom. And I appreciate that. And don't forget, if you get a chance to call in, we have open phone lines, 706-862-8620. Let me see. So we want Bruce to have a conversation, and then we're going to hand it over to Tom, and he's going to bring in Jerry. So it's been a while. All right, Bruce, what you got to say, darling?
Going back to what Tom was saying, where is the ATA, OIDA, everybody jumping on the bandwagon for safety? Well, my question is, we have all these groups out there that has been a thorn in our industry for a very long time over safety, pat and crash, and those people, where are they? You would think they would be up in arms over this, being that, okay, we went after the truck drivers, now they're trying to put driverless vehicles on the interstate, driving these 80,000-pound bombs, as they would say.
Right, but here's my question for you. So we know that in the industry itself, common sense doesn't work, right? They don't think with common sense. Right. So for them, common sense is that driverless trucks, everything's electronic, right? They don't know that when we're driving down the road in a snowstorm, that the eye gets covered in a layer of snow, it no longer works. It no longer works. It never sees anything in front of it. So the same thing would happen with all those, with the dust storm that happened the other day. They didn't know what hit them. They didn't know what was in front of them. They couldn't see. Instead of pulling over like they were supposed to do, they let the truck do its job. Its computer do its job. See what's in front of you.
Christine, right? I am going to jump in there for a second just to clarify. To our knowledge, there was no autonomous trucks or cars involved in that accident.
No, I'm not talking about autonomous. I'm talking about specifically, so we have on board, right? We have onboard lane. This is where we were talking about last week, where we were talking about lane departure, and we're talking about front collision. So that collision mitigation is also looking forward, and when it becomes blocked, it can't see. But common sense doesn't tell that. The average people who, like all these people who seem to think that because the driver has been attacked so many times, the electronics is more important. We've gotten drivers taken out of the situation and electronics to take over. That's not necessarily the case. Now, that being said, like Bruce said, where are the people? That's why. Common sense is what I believe, like Bruce.
Well, and I also think there's
what you said, what you were just saying, it doesn't see. What about in the wintertime when that antenna gets up there and it gets covered over with ice? I've had it. Yep. Where it shut everything down. So it wasn't working.
Yes.
It told me it's not working.
Yeah. And
like you said, that dust storm, boom. You don't get no warning.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like a lake effect snowstorm, dust storm. There is little warning on that. I know one of the questions that I saw being asked over the last day or two in some of the driver groups, are there good weather apps or road updating apps that are very accurate for reporting things like pop snow squalls, blinding rain showers, dust storms, etc.? Tom, I know you've looked at quite a few different things like that. Is there one off the top of your head? I mean, I'm not talking from the autonomous side, just for drivers that could alert them to sudden emergencies like that. And I think Tom Kelly is either away from or thinking.
I missed the beginning of the question.
Oh, so with things like these snowstorms to pop up blindly, dust storms,
horrible rain showers, et cetera, where drivers might need to pull over for safety reasons, or at least be aware, hey, you really need to slow down. Is there an app that gives near real-time information to road or weather conditions to that level or of detail?
Sure. And, right now they're not trying to drive in the snow because they know they can't. They're as far as they are able to drive at night in the rain. That's as far as they are so far. Okay, they will figure out how to drive in the snow and that kind of stuff. But again, that's not the hard part. Okay, that's that part. Okay, so they can do it. You pulled the rabbit from the hat. I'm not impressed.
Right.
The hard part is getting the rabbit back in the hat and showing us that the hat is empty and all the other tricks that go with that. All that's the hard part. But this bit about they can't drive here. They can. They'll figure that part out. There's so much more to driving than that. There's so much more to the human element than is required to make this stuff work. But even then, again, for this to work properly, the truck has to know and understand its surroundings. Okay, and so it's really easy to do this stuff when you do it in a place that has basically no surroundings. Go run this thing outside of Laredo. Go run this thing outside of El Paso. Go run it through the middle part of western Texas or through Arizona, and all. You'll notice that's where they're doing all their testing because they can control the environment.
Yeah.
And Tom, you're partially right in the sense that the idea is that there would be some place, but they don't have that magical place where the trucks would stop and start and what they would run from, and how are you going to move from a trailer that was being pulled by a human driver now being pulled by an automated driver and all. There's so much of this that is a big question mark, and for people to say, the era of autonomous vehicles is here, I swear it's not. You can make it look like it is, but it's not really here yet.
Oh, and I think sometimes in the trucking industry, too many people, whether it's the executives, futurists, et cetera, get so excited by technology, they want to develop it they want to develop forgetting, kind of like using our Boston Marathon. You got a toddler who just started walking 2 days ago and you enter him next week's Boston Marathon, and they kind of forget there's a whole bunch of stuff in between. And I think we're seeing a lot of that there. Jerry, you've seen a lot of different things in the industry. We've kind of covered a couple different topics tonight. Before we come up to a break here in a couple of minutes, what are some of your thoughts? And I'm going to give a maybe more specific question with these groups like Pat and Crash, and these other safety groups out there who are, we'll use the term anti-trucker. Why do you think they're being quiet on this? Do you think it's that they don't know or don't understand, or what's some of your thoughts? Why are more groups not standing up there here and asking questions to the trucking industry about how does this work? How can a safety driver override the system? Is there an override? Why do you think these questions are not being asked?
I really don't know, Tom. I don't have a good answer for that. However, there was an organization, and I could take it through very quickly, a half a dozen things over the years that got developed. At one time, according to Wall Street Journal, this organization and its members moved 87% of the regulated freight in this country. And that was a Teamsters union. I could go back when all this truck manufacturers, there's always been changes. They're the one that came in for standards that you had to have a minimum amount of length between a steer tire and a fuel tank. They're the ones that forced the government to require that all team operations in 1972 have air conditioning trucks. They're the ones that went in through their contracts. Through your contract, you put it in there, Teamsters are going to drive that truck. When they had the cab under trucks, Back when we had the 121 brake system, we protested that vehemently and finally won. Any number of things over the years. We had an organization that actually did stuff like that directly on behalf of the safety of their members. Even silly things like air seats. As of 1974, every new truck from off the assembly line that's going on a union job, that was 87% of the freight, had to have an air seat. In fact, these companies are so obnoxious that air seats began to not operate correctly. The shock absorbers would wear out. Would you believe we had to put it in a union contract that if the air seat was broken, they had to fix it? Yeah. They'd come out and say, oh, the air seat's in there. Same thing with air conditioning. They say, okay, we put air conditioning in it, but it didn't work, and we had to put that in the contract. We had a very, very effective.
That's something that I think, Jerry, I think that's something that unfortunately happens all too often in trucking is people, look at us at drivers and go, hey, why is it we need to do X, Y, Z? They've got this. So, they already have it. Why do we need to make sure it works? And that's one of the things, too. We see a lot of drivers complaining about the maintenance programs or the maintenance on their trucks. How do we know that the maintenance on autonomous trucks or on the ones that have the safety drivers there is going to work right? And I don't know, those are a lot of questions that need to be asked. And I think we need to maybe, even if we're a non-union driver, start asking the Teamsters that question as well. But we've got to take a break here. We'll be back right after this. Keep your ears on.
It's Landline Now, followed by Steve Summers' Overnight Drive every night on TNCRadio.live starting at 11 p.m. Eastern and 10 p.m. Central.
Space in a semi-truck is limited. A majority of truck drivers spend a good portion of their careers living on the road. Trying to fit all the necessary home items, personal products, work documents, and food in a tiny truck cab can be a challenge. Staying organized on the road helps you stay more productive and comfortable. It also helps to be organized in the event of a DOT inspection. The Truckers Network has 5 helpful organization tips for truck drivers. Storage containers. Storage containers are inexpensive and come in a variety of different sizes. Depending on the size, you can fit a storage container in many different places. Make sure to measure the container before buying to ensure you maximize your space. You'll want to use every bit of your cab. Some items you can put in the containers include canned or dry food, water, cleaning supplies, exercise equipment, and toiletries. Some of our recommended storage containers include Iris USA TB42 12-quart stack and pull box, Itemy 6-pack plastic storage baskets, weight trim foldable shoe box. Command hooks. Command hooks are a great way to maximize your space and keep things off the floor. Install a couple command hooks and you can hang your everyday coat, hat, or bag. Here's a pro tip. Use Velcro to attach to containers or different items so they don't slide around while driving on bumpy roads. Some of our recommended command hooks include Command small wire hooks, 16 hooks, 24 strips. Photo Snow adhesive hooks, ultra strong wall hangers and hooks. Budding Joy adhesive heavy-duty hooks. Over-the-door shoe organizer. An over-the-door shoe organizer is great for keeping your closet and your truck cab organized. Instead of storing shoes, store your cleaning supplies, personal items, and some clothes. Check out our recommended shoe organizers. 24 pockets, simple houseware crystal clear over-the-door hanging shoe organizer. Aristocrat Homeware's over-the-door shoe rack and closet organizer system with 24 extra-large heavy-duty pockets. Shower caddies. Truck stop showers are a place you'll often be. Having a shower caddy full of your shower routine necessities will help ensure you have everything you need. Forgetting your toiletries will have you buying some at the truck stop or running back out to your truck. Shower caddies are also great for holding condiments, drinks, and dinnerware. Some of our recommended shower caddies include Greenbrier Small Utility Shower Caddy Tote, 7-pocket shower caddy tote. Labels. Because there's limited space in a semi-cab, most of your things will be in containers. Investing in a label maker is a great way to organize your storage containers and drawers. It also makes it easy to find what you need. Check out some of our recommended labels and label makers. They include Dymo LetraTag 100H Plus handheld label maker, address labels 2.625 by 1 pack of 3,000 labels. Great leaders challenge their people not to stop at the first right answer. Tighten the Lug Nuts is the book that will help you move past that first right answer to be more effective, more productive, and more successful. This book serves as a blueprint that can be easily applied by leaders, entrepreneurs, truckers, owner-operators, all of us in our everyday lives. This is one of the best leadership books you can read to help you accelerate towards your personal and professional goals. Plus, a portion of the proceeds will be donated to truckerschristmasgroup.org. Visit TightenTheLugNuts.com to order your copy today.
Welcome back in TNC Radio.live. This is Keep On Talking. Here's Tom Kirk.
Hey, thank you very much, Tom Kelly. We're getting near the end of the show. It's that time where Flo starts telling us the counter of knowledge is getting ready to shut down. Coming up after our show tonight, we've got Larry and Angie Baum with Taillights. They've got another great guest where they're going to share some stories and conversations on the road. And then at 8 Central, 9 Eastern, we've got the one and only Clutch Time Sports, which is the only sports show geared to truck drivers with Henderson and Banker. And I know there's been a lot of sports news over here over the last couple of weeks, the collapse of the Bruins, some interesting drafts for the NFL, among other things. So I'm sure they've got lots to talk about tonight. So a lot more great talk after this. But we've been doing part 2 of a conversation that started last week about a proposed California regulation that would require a safety driver to be in autonomous vehicles. And we've covered a bunch of different topics tonight, and we're going to be doing more in the near future. I want to see if I can book a couple guests from organizations like PAT or the Congress, the Assemblywoman out of Congressman who's proposed this, to give them a chance to give some of their take on some of these issues that we're bringing up. So hopefully we'll have some great content over here in the next few weeks on that. But hey, Dutch, you got to join us a little later in the evening. We really haven't come to you yet. I'm going to give you a chance to kind of talk a little bit about what you've heard tonight and what some of your thoughts are. And Dutch, are you there? Well, looks like he may have stepped away for a moment. So, Bruce, I'm going to give you a quick moment here to give some thoughts about what you've been hearing tonight. What are some of the things that you think, we could do or should be doing going forwards to maybe reach out and educate other people about a lot of things, about the realities of being a driver and some of the problems we face, lack of parking, a whole bunch of other issues. But also that, hey, there's a lot more to this driving than people realize, and we need to start having better conversations about it.
I think we start getting, we said, get on the phone, write letters to your congressmen, senators, try to get a hold of these people, Pat and Crash, and enlighten them on what they're trying to do, and get their intake on it. We got radio host. We all know him and love him. Truckin' Bozo, he always said, be a pain in the ass to your congressmen and senators. Hound them. Letters, emails, call them. Get your word out, get your voice heard. A lot of times it works. I think we need to go back to the grassroots and start doing that again.
And I think that is key there. And Jerry was talking about that, some of this in the last segment and even off the air and this is something I know I've been proposing for a while, as has Christine. We as drivers are our own worst enemies, because we're great about calling into shows like this and complaining and giving our thoughts. But we're not as good about getting out there and writing our congressmen or calling them and being polite about it, getting a hold of the FMCSA
And this is actually something that I want to bring up. When I was in Joplin there about 2 years ago for an FMCSA listening session, one of the questions that I was asked by the FMCSA rep when I was giving some of my concerns and experiences with the collision mitigation system on my truck and some of the problems it had, he looked at me and says, have you reached out to the National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB? And I'm like, why would I do that? They're the department that needs to know when this equipment is malfunctioning. It's not the FMCSA that handles that. It's the NTSB. And one of the things, that we talked about quite a bit last week, we didn't really touch on as much this week, is some of our personal experiences with some of this equipment malfunctioning. Well, what we probably need to start doing is take his advice and reach out to the NTSB and make sure that they're aware of how we see this equipment working or not working. And if you don't tell somebody, how can they fix it? Will they fix it? I don't know. But if we don't try, the blame, I hate to say it at that point, is on us because we didn't at least try to make people aware of it. And if you want to learn a little bit more about PAT, it's trucksafety.org. The FMCSA's website is fmcsa.gov, and the NTSB is ntsb.gov. So, and in case I said it wrong, it's the fmcsa.gov. But those are websites that are out there. Those are places to start. You can all, go to, just do a Google search, find out who your representatives for both the state and the federal. You can even reach out, even if she's not your legislator, I just apologize, I've forgotten her name, but the assemblywoman in California, you can reach out to her and say, hey, we appreciate what you're trying to do, but I have some concerns, and this is what they are. And it's Cecilia Aguilar Curry, Democrat out of Winters, California. So those are some of the simple things that you can do. And obviously participating in shows like this is great. But what goes along with it? Getting your friends, your family to listen to it, whether it's on the replay, whether it's listening during the shows, and encouraging them to listen and write their congressman. And, make this an issue when you vote. We've got some elections coming up this year. Look at the candidates and, ask them some of these questions and make your decision on who you're going to vote for based on some of those answers. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into electing a representative, but this is something that's important to everybody out there. And then, most importantly, if you get a chance to pick the brains of a computer expert like Tom Kelly or somebody else, ask them some questions and then listen to them talk, because that educates you, which helps you explain things to other people. So there's a lot of little things that we can do out there. We've had another great show. Come back next week. We'll have another great topic that as we do each and every week here on tncradio.live. Great having you with us. Great show tonight, everybody. And we'll see you next week here on the radio on tncradio.live. Keep your ears on for Larry and Angie coming up next.